We are back, and I apologize for it being so long since we've had a wrestling card video, but the summer just kind of got away from me. A lot of good stuff happening, and honestly, to keep up with just collecting wrestling cards and other wrestling memorabilia, sometimes life just got really busy. But I wanted to come back with a big video today and talk about the Carnation 1985 or 1986 set. And it's kind of crazy because I see a lot of other wrestling card podcasters, and this seems to be like a big one, and so I guess we're going to repeat sometimes. It's something that I wanted to do for a while, and so hopefully my take can be a little different than everyone else's, and we could all get some knowledge. They have some really good thoughts too. Sometimes I really enjoy listening to some of the other podcasts on wrestling cards, but this set is really interesting. It came in hot cocoa from Carnation, and I'm sure that if you're slightly familiar with them, you know they came in hot chocolate, like the big canisters of hot chocolate. They came wrapped too. It was clear, so you could see both the front and the back of who you were going to get. This is the set right here, and actually I was surprised that I had a set in such good condition. I'm usually not a condition chaser, but I do know that strong condition does make something. I'm sorry, because I can see there's a little glare. I'm hoping that these are coming across okay. You have Sergeant Slaughter, Kamala, the Road Warriors, or Rick Martel, Ric Flair, and Ivan and Nikita Koloff, or the Russians as they were called. And they've got different sets. It's like the set of champions, and we'll get into that a little bit later by showing something with that. But like Sergeant Slaughter was the America's champion, the Road Warriors were the tag team champions, Martel was the AWA heavyweight champion, Flair was the NWA world champion, the Koloffs were the AWA World Tag Team Champions, and the Road Warriors, or sorry, Kamala was just the Ugandan Giant. So he actually made the set without being one of the champions. But it's kind of interesting because there was an event, Super Clash 1. It was kind of a mix. So this is Super Clash 1. It was September 28th, 1985. So after WrestleMania 1, it would have been about 5 months after WrestleMania 1. And it was kind of a cross-promotions thing. So people were trying to get together because they were worried about Vince going national. But what the problem was everyone wanted to keep their champions as the strongest. So even though, I think it even was said once, it's like they all agreed that they hated Vince more than anything, but that's the only thing they could agree on. They couldn't agree on anything else when they got together. And so it didn't really work out. They weren't able to work together enough to really create something strong. But they did create an event called Super Clash. And I believe they had 3 Super Clashes, but this was out of Chicago. And so you had the Koloffs. They were defending a triple tag team bout against the Crusher, the Bruiser, and Baron Von Raschke, which they won. I believe they won by just straight up. And then you have Ric Flair. He defeated Magnum TA in the world title match. That was just straight up as well. Rick Martel and Stan Hansen ended in a double disqualification. That was for the AWA Championship belt. The Road Warriors wrestled against the Freebirds, or at least 2 of the Freebirds. I believe it would have been Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy. The Freebirds originally looked like they won the championship. Terry Gordy hit one of the Road Warriors with brass knuckles, but Vern Gagne came to the ring and had them change the decision, and so the Road Warriors were able to hang on as AWA champs. Kamala, the Ugandan Giant, was in a match with Jerry Blackwell in a body slam match. Kamala would have been managed by Sheik Adnan Al-Casey at the time, or General Adnan, as some of you know him. He recently passed away. Really nice guy, really great wrestling personality as well. But Kamala lost that match, but they still made a card of him. He was pretty big at the time, and definitely different, like a different kind of thing. And so they were really excited about him. And then Sergeant Slaughter defeated Boris Zukov by disqualification. That was for the AWA America's Champion. So the America's Champion is more than just a title, but it was actually a championship held at the time. And so this was in Chicago. So that's kind of where I think these cards came from. They were distributed strongly in the Midwest, in the Minneapolis area, in the Milwaukee area, in the Chicago area, Detroit, and Indianapolis, and all those types of cities. St. Louis had them as well. They made their way down to the southeast a little bit, like Atlanta, Charlotte area, a little bit like that. I don't believe they were very prevalent in the Northeast with New York, and I don't believe they were very prevalent on the West Coast, but they did make it a little bit. You have to remember that hot chocolate has like a 2-year shelf life. And it's kind of ironic because my family didn't drink hot chocolate, so because otherwise I would have been all over this, but I'm sure that we never passed it and said, hey, there's wrestling cards in this. So all my wrestling cards I received from this set have been later in life, and it was not like the honeycomb cereal when they had the posters that I was buying honeycomb cereal every 2 weeks so I could get the entire collection of posters. But I have some extras too. There's some Sergeant Slaughters, some Koloffs, Ric Flairs. And I'm really just glad that I've collected these for years, and they've gotten really more popular probably in the last 2 or 3 years especially. And so I'm not sure if this is all I have. I actually think I must have some low-grade ones someplace. These all seem to be really high-grade, which is really exciting. And there's a couple centering issues, as you can see, in a couple of them. But for the most part, there's no... I looked at all of these that I found today, and there's no cocoa residue on any of them, which is pretty cool. And so a couple centering issues would cause some to not quite grade the way I'd like to, but for the most part, they're really nice. So, like I said, the Carnation was out of Kalamazoo, and this was out of the Superclass was out of Chicago. So that's kind of, I think, where everything originated from this. They have 1985 copyrights on the back, and they have 1986 on the front. I think they were kind of promoting the 1986 season, going into 1986. I consider them 1985 cards, and so if someone wants to disagree with me on that, they can, but I would certainly consider them 1985 cards. And so then I guess we'll get into the whole rookie card debate, and that's not what this video is about. But yeah, I have another surprise for you coming up, and I'll have to take a quick break here, but I'll be right back with before we go to that surprise, and I should just edit that out, but I'm not going to because I'm running a little behind tonight, and and time right now is very precious. But this kind of neat on back. I also like it says what your hobbies are. Ric Flair's hobbies are cars and clothes. I believe Rick Martel's were hockey and horseback riding. I think they were staying in kayfabe, judging from some of the ones, because one of the Russians had Russian literature. I just thought that was hilarious too. So which one's reading? We have powerlifting, which obviously would be Nikita Koloff. So I guess Ivan Koloff is into Russian literature. And then something on the back, aside from the biography and the hobbies, we have the special Carnation Hot Cocoa Mix Wrestling poster offer. And for this, you could just send your name, address, and $2.50 check or money order, and then it gives you the address in Kalamazoo. I believe you had to wait 6 weeks for shipment. And so that didn't even require UPC symbols or anything like that. I mean, we're talking the 80s here, so that had to be an interesting thing, because we're all putting up posters of our favorite superstars and stuff. The wrestling posters were just coming out in the WWF magazine, so this is kind of their way of competing with that. So kind of an interesting thought to see what the wrestling poster would be like, but maybe we can take a look at it. So yes, if you sent in your $2.50, this is the wrestling poster you got. I'm sorry, I know there's a glare on this one too. Maybe you need to stand and block the light a little bit or something, then you're going to get my shadow. So I don't think you can win in that situation. But this is the wrestling poster that you would get if you sent in your $2.50. So amazing, because I could imagine this sells for a little bit more than $2.50, and even in the inflated dollar these days. This is a pretty cool thing. But it had the 6 champions, the 6 people that were on the cards. It had them all listed. It had the Carnation. Let's zoom in the middle a little bit, and then otherwise just... You have Ric Flair, Sergeant Slaughter, Kamala, the Legion of Doom, Rick Martel, and the Koloffs. We're going to zoom out a little bit, and so yeah, there you see the poster. This would have been what you would have sent in. So imagine buying the hot cocoa mix. If you're buying the hot cocoa mix to get the cards out of the hot cocoa mix, I'm sure that this would have been something that interests you. I mean, I'm trying to think back about 1985, and I don't know if you were like me, you remember those at like we had Walmart and Kmart were our 2 big department stores, actually, and there were Targets. They weren't quite as close, but we did shop at Target at times too. And they had these big oh, how would you even, like poster frames of posters that you would cycle through, and then there'd be a cube below with like almost like a grid, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and A, B, C, D, E. And so you'd find, I believe that one time they had a Hulk Hogan poster, you'd find the Hulk Hogan poster, and it would say, this is in bin A3, so you'd go A and then go over to 3, and then they would hopefully have Hulk Hogan posters in that one, and they weren't too messed up. And I remember them being about $4.99 a piece at that time, so $2.50 for a poster when you didn't even need any extra UPC symbols or not, because other things that you did, sometimes you'd need like 4 UPC symbols. And if you bought a big canister of hot chocolate, I mean, unless you're feeding like a group, like you're doing group feeds of some kind, and everyone's coming in from sledding and drinking hot chocolate, you're not going to go through a canister of hot chocolate that fast. And so otherwise, I guess the other idea is if you were digging through the cards, I'm sure that the canister of hot chocolate probably seemed like it was worth more than the cards at the time. Probably not to some of the kids, because I would have thought the cards were worth way more than whatever my parents were paying for the canister of hot chocolate. But at the same time, it was like, yes, you would have been like, yeah, you're not going to spend, I have no idea how much hot chocolate costs. Like I said, my family doesn't drink hot chocolate. I still don't drink hot chocolate to this day. I'm going to assume back then a canister of hot chocolate, that was one of the big ones I'm thinking of, was probably about $7 or $8. And that's a lot for a poster then. So that's why it's nice that you don't need the UPC symbols. Just send in the $2.50. Get this poster back. It's a pretty cool poster. It's got the 6 wrestlers on it. I mean, at this time, there would have been really, I mean, pretty much anyone not WWF. You'd had Ric Flair, Sergeant Slaughter, Kamala, the Russians, Rick Martel, and the Road Warriors. And so that would have been really cool. Anything Road Warriors at that time would have been cool to me. Kamala was a great bad guy. He would have been awesome. Rick Martel was the AWA champion. I didn't know him as well, but I did have the Remco action figure of him. The Russians were causing chaos every Saturday morning on TBS. The Russians beating up the Rock and Roll Express or Dusty Rhodes or something like that. Possibly the Road Warriors. Ric Flair, of course, he needs no introduction. He would have been also Saturday mornings on TBS and then Saturday nights. And Sergeant Slaughter was kind of ruling in the AWA and then had the G.I. Joe thing going as well. So send in your money. I just think this is the coolest thing. It reminds me of Super Clash 1. This is one of the most unique items you can get related to wrestling cards that is an actual card itself. I definitely put it in the wrestling card categories. This is part of my wrestling card collection. And so Carnation, definitely something really interesting, and I'm still going to look for more information. I know a lot of the wrestling card collectors are looking for more information out there, and of course the cards are always being looked for as well. And if I find more cards someday, maybe in a future video or something, I'll talk more about them, but at least I have them all. I actually just ordered a second Road Warriors card because since I only found one, I figure I might need a second one just to finish. I at least have 2 sets then for sure that I have right now. Like I said, I think I have a few more someplace. Well, we have some more videos that we're hoping to get off soon. The fall hopefully will give me a little bit more time to do this, and like I said, I've been chasing because I actually have a humongous wrestling card purchase, one of the biggest ones I've done in a long time, and I'm hoping to show that off. And right now it's scheduled to get here next Wednesday, so maybe late next week we'll be able to do another wrestling card video and share that. That'll be a unique one as well. So